My name is David, and 2 years ago I weighed a staggering 325 pounds. My wife, Amanda, was increasingly worried about my health, especially after losing friends to heart attacks. The urgency of the situation became more pressing every day. Amanda, determined to motivate me, devised a plan that involved limiting our intimate moments to just 4 times a year, tying these rare occasions to my weight loss milestones. These special moments included Valentine's Day, our anniversary, and our respective birthdays. It was an unconventional approach, but it worked. Over the span of 2 grueling years, I managed to lose 118 pounds, reaching around 207 pounds. However, the journey was anything but easy. There were countless times when I wanted to give up, feeling the weight of the struggle both physically and emotionally. One such moment was when I had lost 118 pounds and felt utterly drained. I shared my thoughts about quitting with Amanda, expecting some encouragement. Instead, what she said shook the very foundation of our marriage. Amanda issued an ultimatum that would become the catalyst for everything that followed. If I stopped losing weight, our intimacy would remain limited to those 4 times a year, and she would seek fulfillment elsewhere. Amanda's threat shook the very foundation of our marriage. My head snapped up in shock and confusion, my eyes filled with sadness and hurt. The foundation began to crack as I processed her words, and it crumbled as my emotions shifted to anger and disgust. Amanda instantly realized her grave mistake. She had pushed me to my limits for her own goals, and then threatened infidelity as a punishment. I was frustrated and emphasized the tremendous effort I had put into losing over 100 pounds for Amanda's sake. I accused her of using intimacy as a weapon to manipulate me, expressing disappointment that her reward was continued deprivation and potential infidelity. I felt that Amanda had jeopardized our marriage and introduced chaos into our home. I questioned her trustworthiness and speculated about her thoughts of infidelity throughout our 2-year journey. In conclusion, I felt that Amanda had ruined our marriage, leaving me uncertain about what to believe. Amanda expressed regret, insisting that she never intended to cheat, but with a look of disgust, I questioned the credibility of her words. I conveyed my seriousness about the situation and left the kitchen table, heading to the garage to contemplate. In the garage, I declared my need for time to think, leaving Amanda in tears as she realized the gravity of the situation. She sobbed, acknowledging the seed of doubt planted in my mind and understanding the challenge of dispelling it. Reflecting on her actions, Amanda admitted her lack of consideration for my feelings. She acknowledged her greed and desire for more, despite my previous efforts. Now, she recognized the need to regain what she had lost. I spent about an hour in the garage, engaging in activities to occupy my hands while contemplating the complexities of the situation. I didn't really believe that Amanda had cheated on me over the last 2 years, but now, after her comment, I wasn't sure anymore. Earlier in the day, I would have been confident, but now I couldn't be certain. I didn't know either if she would have cheated on me in the future. Earlier, I would have never believed it, but now I wasn't sure anymore. I said out loud, "I need to find out." I walked back into the house, finding Amanda still seated at the kitchen table, visibly distressed with red eyes and a red nose from crying. Observing her condition, I felt a sense of regret, but remained resolute in carrying out my decision. I informed Amanda that I was abandoning the diet and that our intimate moments would be restricted to the previously agreed upon 4 times a year, or even none at all, leaving the choice to her discretion. I warned of severe consequences if she chose to engage with someone else, expressing my intent to inflict physical harm on her potential lover. I sternly addressed Amanda, asserting that any infidelity on her part would lead to an immediate end of our relationship. I emphasized that I would not tolerate staying married to a cheater and labeled her as a deceitful woman, indicating my lack of tolerance for unfaithfulness. I declared my mistrust and announced my intention to closely monitor her actions, cautioning her to be exceedingly careful. Concluding my message, I mentioned my departure for a while, indicating my absence for lunch, but assuring my presence for dinner. I offered the option of ordering food if she didn't feel like cooking, leaving the atmosphere charged with tension and uncertainty. I grabbed my car keys off the counter and walked out the back door into the garage. Moments later, Amanda heard the garage door open and my car drive away. She said out loud, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. How could I be so stupid?" She began sobbing again, and just sat there wishing she had kept her mouth shut. An hour or so later, she got up to go to the bathroom, then went and lay on her bed and cried some more. When I arrived home later that afternoon, I found her in the exact same position. Like so many husbands who suspected their wife of cheating, I decided to do some detective work on my own. I thought the easiest way to start was to drive to the telephone providers and request a printout of call logs for our home phone and Amanda's cell phone. Both were in my name, so I knew I wouldn't have any trouble getting the reports. The landline phone company told me I could have the logs electronically, and they were able to upload the call logs for the last 3 years onto a CD for me for a small fee. I gladly paid it and walked out of the office with everything I asked for. I requested 3 years of logs because I wanted to go back to before I had started the diet to see if there had been any motivation for Amanda cutting me off in the first place. Next, I went to the cell phone company and requested identical data. They hesitated at first since it was Amanda's cell phone number I wanted the data for, but I pointed out that it was a joint account with my name prominently on the records, so they had no reason to withhold any information I might request. They offered the data electronically as well for a fee of $120. I thought it was excessive, but probably worth the money. When I got home around 4 p.m., I found Amanda lying on our bed, sound asleep. Deciding to let her rest, I headed to our home office and locked the door behind me. I sat down at the computer and transferred all the data from the 2 CDs into a folder on my documents file. I had already figured out my plan. I would start with the phone records from 2 years ago, listing every telephone number called during the first month I started my diet, and when Amanda restricted our intimacy to 4 times a year, with rewards for weight loss goals. That would have been September 2008. Our home phone had 96 calls to 19 different numbers that September. The phone company had provided the data in a format that allowed me to sort it in various ways. So I created a list by number, showing the number, date, time, and duration of each call. Once I got the system figured out, it took me about an hour and a half to create a complete list of every call made from our home phone over the past 2 years. I was just about to start the same process on Amanda's cell phone data when I heard the office doorknob rattle. Since the door was locked, no one could come in. I quickly saved everything I had been doing, stashed away all evidence, logged off the computer, and opened the door. There stood Amanda, looking utterly pitiful. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes and nose were red from crying. She kept her head bent down and only reluctantly looked up into my eyes. Amanda expressed deep remorse, acknowledging the hurt and anger she had caused. She recognized her own selfish and cruel actions, admitting that she had overstepped by interfering with my diet progress. She apologized sincerely, asking for forgiveness, and acknowledging that the decision to continue the diet should have been mine alone. Despite feeling overwhelmed by the situation, she pleaded with me to forgive her. I conveyed my forgiveness to Amanda, emphasizing that it was granted based only on the information I had at the moment. I expressed my love for her and reminded her of the sacrifices I had made during the 2-year struggle with my weight, including abstaining from intimacy, all for her. However, I admitted that I had reached a breaking point and could no longer continue. I addressed the current situation, describing it as a gorilla in the room that needed to be addressed. I stressed the importance of knowing definitively whether or not she had cheated on me, as the uncertainty would drive me crazy. I outlined the conditions for our relationship moving forward, stating that if she had not cheated in the past and did not plan to in the future, we could be okay. However, I made it clear that I needed assurance. I held Amanda accountable for creating the mess with her hasty comment and threat, expressing my disbelief at her lack of consideration for my feelings and the damage it caused to my trust in her. I highlighted the need for her to deal with the consequences until I felt confident in our relationship. Amanda had hoped I would just forgive her and forget what she had said, but that wasn't going to happen. She thought to herself that she probably deserved everything that was happening to her, but wished it could all just go away. She nodded slowly, resigned to agreement, and turned, walking dejectedly back to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. She lay on the bed again, not sobbing, but with tears streaking her face. I opened the bedroom door and asked, "Do you want something to eat?" Amanda replied, "No, David, I'm not hungry." I walked out to my car and drove off again to a nearby place called Grisham's. Amanda and I had gone there for drinks many times, and their food was excellent. I knew I could have a few beers and a greasy but delicious bacon cheeseburger. Over the past 2 years, I hadn't had more than 2 beers in a week's time, and not one bacon cheeseburger. Tonight, I was going to give in and have what I wanted, even though my heart was breaking. When I got home, I began working on the call log from Amanda's cell phone. Since I already knew the drill, it was easier to finish the cell phone list, and I was done in half the time. After reviewing the two lists, I determined that over the course of 2 years, there had been 3,482 calls, made in total to 45 different telephone numbers. I decided to sort the calls by telephone number and had some surprising results. There were almost 300 calls to my cell phone, about 200 calls to my parents' number, and a similar number of calls to Amanda's parents' number. There were close to that many to each of Amanda's sisters, and about half that number to my brother John. Additionally, there was a scattering of calls to various friends whose numbers I recognized, and a few to other numbers I didn't recognize. Going down the list, I discovered that there were over 200 calls to a number I didn't recognize, and another 50-plus calls to a second number I didn't recognize. Then I realized there were some calls, 30 or more, to additional numbers that were made over the course of 2 years. I assumed those might be hair salons, stores, church, etc. None of those statistics bothered me much, so I just noted them and went back to the two major unrecognizable numbers. Being the type of guy I am, I decided to refine my research a little more and sorted the calls by day and time for those two numbers. The surprising results gave me chills, and almost immediately, I was burning up with suspicion and anger. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m., I attended a staff meeting with my boss and other department heads at a local restaurant with meeting rooms. We convened in conference for an hour, took a 1-hour lunch break, and concluded our business by 2:30 p.m. or 3 p.m. consistently. Every Wednesday at 10:55 a.m., there was a call to my cell phone. While some weeks were missed, I quickly realized those were the weeks I was on vacation, but the pattern held firm. Every Wednesday at 10:55 a.m. At 11:05 a.m., another call was made to the first of the two numbers I didn't recognize. This seemed far too coincidental, and my suspicion grew. I knew at that moment that what I was about to uncover wouldn't bring me any joy. Persevering, I looked at the second number and quickly noticed these calls were consistently placed on Fridays. Once a month, on Friday afternoons, I played golf with my brother and our best friends. We'd finish 18 holes around 5:30 p.m., stop in the clubhouse for a couple of drinks, and head home, usually arriving before 6:30 p.m. On those Fridays, I'd shower and take Amanda out to eat. What angered me was that Amanda always called me just before I teed off, expressing her love and letting me know she'd be waiting when I finished my round and got home. Now, I understood what was happening, but I lacked visual proof or the identity of her affair partner. The scary part was wondering how long this had been going on. Did it start when Amanda cut me off, or had it begun earlier? Extending my investigation another year, I discovered that the same calls were made once a month for the 3 months before she cut me off. Whatever Amanda was doing, she had been doing it 3 months earlier, though not as frequently. All I had to do now was figure out who it was and decide what to do about it. Finding out who would be easy. I ran a reverse lookup on the first number and found it to be an unlisted cell phone number. Running the reverse lookup on the second number, I discovered it was listed to a Christopher Benson. Of course, I knew exactly who Christopher was. He was my trainer at the gym. Amanda had initially found him for me. So Amanda was calling Christopher on the Fridays when I played golf. I noted the address in my call log spreadsheet and decided to go out again for a while. Returning to Grisham's, I had a couple more beers. When things quieted down after the dinner rush, I approached the rather attractive bartender, Patricia, seeking her help. I briefly explained my situation and asked Patricia to determine if the first number belonged to Christopher. I dialed the number and instructed Patricia to ask for Christopher, and, if it was him, mentioned that a woman had given her the number as a potential trainer. If it was Christopher, she should tell him that if he had openings, she would stop by the gym one of these days. Patricia, taking the phone, inquired if the person on the other end was Christopher. She explained that she was Jennifer, a woman who had received Christopher's name from someone at her hair salon. During a conversation about getting in better shape, she mentioned her age, 24, height, 5'6" to 6, and current weight of around 130 pounds. Despite feeling scrutinized, She acknowledged she could improve her fitness and happiness by reaching around 115 pounds. Expressing gratitude for the compliment, Jennifer inquired about Christopher's availability. Learning that an opening had recently become available due to a client quitting, she expressed her interest, indicating her intention to visit Christopher in a couple of days to discuss the necessary steps to achieve her fitness goals. She thanked Christopher and concluded the conversation, looking forward to meeting him soon. I sat there in amazement at what Patricia had just done. She verified it was Christopher from the gym and discovered that he did indeed hit on women who used him as a trainer. She even verified he had an opening because of a dropout. That dropout had to be me. Damn, Amanda must have already called Christopher to tell him what happened and to warn him to be ultra careful. Despite feeling lower than dirt, there was some humor in what Patricia had said. I didn't know or care how much she actually weighed. She was hot just as she was and didn't need to lose an ounce. Smiling at her, I told her she was too funny and perfect the way she was, advising her to stay away from Christopher. Patricia responded to my compliment with a beautiful smile, expressing gratitude and calling me a kind sir. She acknowledged my attractiveness, describing me as a hunk, and expressing confusion about why my wife would seek companionship elsewhere. Smiling back, I admitted that 2 years ago, I might not have been considered a hunk, but it didn't justify Amanda's act of cheating. I thanked Patricia for her assistance in gathering information about Christopher and boosting my deflated ego. Expressing my appreciation, I mentioned that I should head home, thanking Patricia once more for her support and understanding. When I got home, it was late, so I just went to bed. Crawling into bed, I looked across at Amanda and felt a deep sense of loss and disappointment. I didn't think I had ever been this low in my life, but I was certain that before it was all over, I would feel even worse. Amanda woke slightly when I crawled in and said, "I love you, David." I just grunted at that and turned away from her, trying to sleep. Of course, I couldn't get to sleep right away and just lay there thinking for quite a while. I was certain I heard a sob or two from Amanda, but she had obviously calmed down somewhat. In the morning, I woke up to find Amanda spooned against me, her body pressing into my back. Sensing my arousal, she reached around and placed her hand on me, expressing remorse for her previous words and requesting closeness. Aware of my vulnerability, I resisted the temptation, citing the need to get going that morning and the established boundaries. I reminded Amanda of the cutoff I had communicated earlier, emphasizing that such attempts should not be repeated. I left the bed, showered, and headed to work. Amanda, left alone, muttered to herself about deserving the consequences of her words and the accompanying emotional pain. Upon reaching work, I confided in my boss about the issues at home, briefly explaining the situation and receiving support. My boss advised me to take any necessary time off to address my suspicions and provided the name of a reputable electronics distributor for surveillance equipment. Expressing gratitude, I informed my boss that I would be taking time off from Wednesday through Friday, planning to pursue my suspicions. Understanding my intentions, my boss wished me good luck with a smile. I went to the electronics distributor's location and found out that my boss had called ahead and instructed them to assist me with whatever I needed. Visual evidence seemed challenging for me, but recording was manageable. I acquired 3 top-of-the-line bugs with sufficient battery life to transmit many hours of activity to a receiver within a couple of city blocks when the operator downloaded the data. When I arrived home, I was greeted by an enticing aroma wafting from the kitchen. Amanda had prepared my favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread and sweet green peas. I thanked her for the meal and excused myself to watch some television, trying to act as if everything was normal. Amanda cleaned up the kitchen and joined me in the TV room, careful to keep her distance, sensing the tension between us. At bedtime, she headed to our bedroom, giving me the opportunity I needed to plant one of the bugs inside our home phone, ensuring I captured every conversation. Though nervous about bugging her cell phone, I knew it had to be done and quickly got it over with. Now I had access to all her communications. The next step was bugging Christopher's phone. Despite having bugs on Amanda's phones, I considered she might use another device or a payphone to contact him. To cover all bases, I decided to bug Christopher's phone directly. I knew he often worked closely with a well-built blonde woman on Wednesday mornings. I figured I could use this distraction to my advantage. I went to the gym and saw Christopher's phone sitting on his towel around 10:50 a.m. From where Christopher was with the blonde, It would be risky to grab the phone, but I thought, what do I have to lose? I snuck in, slipped the phone into my pocket, and quickly retreated to the men's room. There, I deftly inserted the bug into Christopher's phone. The tricky part would be returning it without being seen. When I went back to the gym, Christopher was still occupied with the blonde. I knew I wouldn't make it to the towel and back without getting caught. Damn, I thought. How am I going to pull this off? After a moment, I decided to slide the phone across the floor towards the towel, hoping to get it close enough so Christopher wouldn't notice. It was risky, but I went for it. Despite making some noise, Christopher, engrossed with the blonde, remained unaware. Fortunately, the phone slid forcefully enough to reach the towel, hitting it and sliding underneath. Perfect. There was no way Christopher could suspect anything now, so I left the gym quickly. At 10:55 a.m. sharp, my cell phone rang. It was Amanda, wanting to touch base before my supposed meeting. Of course, I hadn't told her I was off work for the rest of the week. After a brief conversation, I started monitoring the bugs from my car. Christopher's phone rang, and he answered swiftly. Christopher greeted Amanda, asking if she wanted to meet at his place as usual. Amanda, sounding cautious, said I was highly suspicious and suggested they lay low for a while. Christopher groaned in disappointment, not wanting to give up their rendezvous. I felt a surge of anger as I listened. Amanda admitted that the first time they were intimate, she knew she'd do anything to be with him. She explained that she cut me off to enjoy her time more with Christopher. Though she claimed to love me, she couldn't risk it now. She proposed they might resume their weekly encounters in a few weeks, but suggested Christopher could see his other girlfriends in the meantime. Amanda wasn't jealous of Christopher's other relationships and proposed meeting on the Fridays when I played golf, promising to let Christopher know if it could work out. I had heard enough. My anger was boiling over. I was determined to get revenge. Amanda had been using the diet as an excuse to enhance her time with Christopher for the past 2.5 years. They had been meeting every Wednesday and on the monthly golfing Fridays, totaling over 100 encounters. I questioned how she could claim to love me while engaging in such behavior. Regardless, Christopher's involvement alone was enough for me to seek revenge against both of them. Over the next 2 days, I devised a plan, established contacts, and set everything in motion for the weekend. Monitoring the phone taps, I discovered Amanda had a beautician appointment on Friday morning. In a conversation with her beautician, Diane, Amanda mentioned wanting a new, sexy hairstyle to distract me from any suspicions. She also talked about buying provocative lingerie to further divert my attention. When Diane asked about Christopher, Amanda laughed and admitted she might reduce their encounters temporarily, but wasn't considering it a permanent decision. Each revelation was a fresh stab to my heart, but my anger kept me focused. On Saturday after lunch, the doorbell rang. Amanda opened it to find Patricia, who introduced herself as a friend of mine. Patricia said I had invited her to spend time by the pool. Amanda, surprised and uneasy, showed her to the pool. Shortly after, Nancy and Helen arrived, both claiming I had invited them too. Nancy, an old colleague, and Helen, a waitress from Grisham's, added to Amanda's discomfort. The three women settled on lounge chairs, applying suntan lotion. They soon agreed to help each other with the sunscreen to ensure no spots were missed. Once they were thoroughly coated, they lay down to soak up the sun. After a while, they decided an all-over tan would be better, and each woman untied her bikini top and set it aside. Amanda was upset and wanted to ask them to leave, but since I had invited them, she knew she had to be careful, especially given our recent tensions. Around 3:30 p.m., Patricia approached Amanda and took a seat beside her. She revealed she worked as a bartender at Grisham's and shared that I had confided in her about our situation. Patricia said she believed Amanda had made a significant mistake and that I was now suspicious and investigating. Amanda was visibly startled by Patricia's revelations. Patricia laid it all out for Amanda, making it clear that if I discovered any past or future infidelity, I intended to be intimate with Patricia, Nancy, and Helen for each instance of cheating. Amanda was visibly stunned, but before she could respond, Patricia continued, explaining that if Amanda lied when I questioned her, I would also be with one of them for each lie. Patricia hinted that they found me attractive and were more than willing to be with me. Already aware of Amanda's past infidelity, Patricia expected that Amanda would lie to cover up her actions. resulting in a busy time for me with the three women. Nancy joined in, sharing that she had known me for several years and always found me handsome and sweet despite my weight gain. She admitted her crush on me had only grown stronger since I lost the extra weight, acknowledging the problems between Amanda and me, and expressing her willingness to pursue a relationship with me, stating that she would be available anytime I wanted. Helen added her perspective, revealing that she had been observing Amanda and me for a while. She noticed the love I showed for Amanda and made it clear she had been closely watching us. Helen admired my kindness and consideration towards Amanda, expressing how lucky she felt to witness such a loving connection. She admitted to fantasizing about being in Amanda's position, marveling at my significant weight loss and transformation. She expressed a desire to have a man like me in her life. At precisely 4 p.m., as planned, I walked out onto the pool deck, taking in the sight of Amanda and the three women. I greeted Amanda and commented on the women's improved tans, playfully noting their beautiful bodies and suggesting they might give me a hard time. I encouraged Amanda to join in the banter, jokingly asking why she hadn't removed her top. Clearly upset by the day's events, Amanda reluctantly complied. I then asked Amanda two critical questions, emphasizing the need for honesty. I asked if she had ever cheated on me during our marriage. Amanda firmly denied any infidelity. I pressed further, specifically mentioning Christopher from the gym. Amanda maintained her denial, acting confused about where such an idea came from. I continued to question her about her involvement with Christopher, citing their regular Wednesday meetings and Friday afternoons when I played golf. Despite my detailed knowledge of her affair, Amanda stuck to her denial, hoping I lacked concrete evidence. Patricia, Nancy, and Helen watched with knowing smiles, anticipating the truth would soon come out. I revealed the evidence I had gathered, including phone logs from both the landline and Amanda's cell phone. I detailed the pattern of calls, pointing out the regular contact with Christopher. Patricia even called the number, confirming it was Christopher's. Although I didn't have photos of Amanda and Christopher together, I was convinced the weekly calls were not innocent. In shock, Amanda realized the extent of my knowledge, understanding that our relationship was on the brink. As she attempted to respond, I cut her off, stating there was nothing she could say to convince me of her innocence. Despite my deep love for her, my current emotions of hurt, disgust, and anger were overwhelming. I introduced the three women, Nancy, Helen, and Patricia, explaining their connections to me. I described Nancy as a longtime work associate, acknowledging her beauty and sweetness. I disclosed that I knew about Nancy's crush on me, but had never acted on it out of respect for my marriage. Nancy smiled, recognizing our genuine friendship. Helen, who served us during our visits to Grisham's, admitted her fantasy of being with us, emphasizing her admiration for me. I complimented her physical attributes and expressed my intention to explore an experience with her. Patricia, the newest acquaintance, showed empathy and compassion during our conversation about my distress. I highlighted Patricia's help in obtaining information and forming a connection with her. As I spoke, Amanda teetered on the edge of a breakdown, visibly emotional, with tears streaming down her face and her breathing becoming erratic. Despite wanting to say something to me, she stayed silent. I acknowledged the interest expressed by the three women and revealed my anticipation of enjoying intimate encounters with them, exploring every aspect of sensuality. However, I reiterated my commitment not to be unfaithful in my marriage and expressed the need to end things with Amanda to pursue these new relationships. I asserted that ending the marriage was the only solution. Patricia then produced divorce papers from her bag and informed Amanda that she was being served. Overwhelmed, Amanda broke down in tears. Trying to plead with me, she apologized profusely and declared her love, begging me to reconsider. I responded, expressing doubt about her love, citing her actions over the past 2 years as evidence. I emphasized that this went beyond a couple of instances, believing it occurred over 100 times. The court hearing was set for next Friday, and after the legal separation, I planned to begin relationships with the three women. I suggested that indulging in pleasures with them might help me find forgiveness for Amanda's affair with Christopher and understand the satisfaction it brought her. I expressed hope that a lasting connection with the new relationships could provide the love and support I had believed I had with Amanda. I informed the three women it was time for them to leave, assuring them that I would be in touch individually. I then went into the house to gather a few belongings, preparing for a stay at a hotel until Friday, when either Amanda or I would officially move out. Unable to form coherent thoughts, Amanda remained seated by the pool, now crying softly. I emerged through the patio doors, placed my suitcases down, and approached her. Amanda wasn't sure what more I had to say, but it quickly became evident. I reminded her of the consequences I had forewarned for her lover. As it turned out, when she supposedly canceled on Christopher the previous day, he pursued a relationship with the well-endowed blonde co-worker he warmed up with every Wednesday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., his prelude before their rendezvous. Patricia, Nancy, and Helen would have a similar effect on me, hoping it transformed me into a lover for them. By the way, the blonde was Angela Evans, Angelo Evans' wife. Angelo took offense to Christopher's involvement with his wife, and he, along with a couple of his associates, subjected Christopher to a severe beating. Christopher's face was now a mess, with a few remaining teeth and some broken ribs. Angelo even allowed me the privilege of delivering a significant blow to Christopher's groin. The outcome? It's doubtful Christopher will produce any more hot seed, and there's skepticism about his ability to engage in lovemaking activities again. Of course, I would deny any involvement in Christopher's fate. Moreover, Friday being my golf day conveniently provided me with an alibi through my brother and friends. Wishing Amanda a great life, I informed her we would meet in court the following Friday. That day, Amanda was left alone in tears. Within the next 2 hours, she packed her bags and headed to her mother's place. The divorce process took 7 months, leaving Amanda devastated and sinking into deep depression. Contrary to what I claimed about the other ladies, I had no intention of following through. Instead, I found solace in adopting 2 golden retrievers and ultimately discovered unconditional true love.